Today's lecture will be over Chapter 16, Section 3. Objectives. Number 1, explain the historical importance of Central Asia. Number 2, describe the environmental problems and promise of the region. Number 3, explain how Soviet policies contributed to the region's instability and identify some unifying forces. And number 4, describe the traditional lifestyles of nomads in Central Asia. So the first thing that we do is we go ahead and we look at our map right here. If we kind of expand right here, one of the things that we've talked about many times is that we've talked about Europe and how they continue to trade with India. One of the things that we saw was that when the age of exploration of the 1400s, we start seeing these people coming around the southern tip of Africa. Now, the question is that what did they do before that? And what we see is that these countries in Eastern Europe are going to go ahead and they're going to send people all the way across this region, and they're going to come up from this area and go all the way to India. So what we have is that we've got a huge transportation network, a huge migration network, and this is the historical importance right here, is that this region is going to be the big point of trade for a long period of time. This is what's going to be called the Silk Road, trade routes from the Mediterranean all the way to China. Now, what countries actually are going to be included in this? We have Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. Now, around 100 BC, caravans began crossing the region in horses and camels, and this is the Silk Road. This is the important region that people continue to trade over and over with. What we see is caravans are going to carry silk, gold, ivory, jade, spices, linens, and perfumes. This 4,000-mile journey is going to take a long period of time, of course, and people aren't able to carry as much as they would through the boats. But what we do see is that they're going to go to Bukhara. We're going to also see them go to Samarkand, and then in the 14th century, because the cheaper sea routes start to replace this Silk Road, it's not as important. But again, this Silk Road for a long period of time becomes incredibly important. Now in the 1800s, Britain and Russia are going to compete to control this area in what's called the Great Game. Britain wants to protect its Indian colonies from Russian expansion, and so what we see is that young officers on both sides travel the region in disguise. They make maps, they try to win over local leaders, and they all want to be on their side so that they continue to trade. By about the 1900, Russia wins and they control this region, and then when they become the Soviet Union, they win basically by force, and for about 1920 to 1991, Russia is going to own this Silk Road so much, and they continue to use it for trade and continue to use it for a lot of different other things. Now in Kazakhstan is going to be used for nuclear testing. About 1949 to 1989, 470 nuclear devices are going to be set off near Polygon. And then the residents, of course, they didn't know this at the time, but they're going to have increased rates of leukemia, thyroid cancer, birth defects, all on the rise, all because of this. Now, potential prosperity in this region, because you're going to have oil and gas wealth in the Caspian. Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan are going to want to continue this. So the new game, or the new great game, is going to be that people want to come in and own this because of oil. Oil, again, becoming kind of the black gold of its time. Soviet Union is going to make about 5 nations out of the Kaz, the Kyrgyz, the Chechens, the Turkmen, and the Uzbeks. They drew political borders directly going and basically putting these ethnic minority groups together. And the reason that they want to do this is they want them to start fighting. And if they fight, they basically are fighting against each other, and they're not worried about what's going on in the Soviet Union, and they don't care about the Soviet rule. And I shouldn't say that they don't care. They're just going to go ahead and they're going to worry about fighting each other a lot more. For example, today the Uzbeks are going to form about 24% of Tajikistan. Uzbek cities are going to go ahead. Samarkand, Bukhara have large Teak populations, and so you're going to see a lot of different fightings in that area. Now, in this area also, you're going to see most are going to speak are going to be Muslim religion, but they're going to speak kind of a Turkish language. Many do still speak the Russian language because, of course, the Soviet Union forced them to have that language. Now we also see in this area, you're going to see a large group of nomads, and these are going to be people with no permanent home, few possessions, and they basically move themselves and their animals for a few different reasons. Number one, they're seeking food. They might also be seeking water and also grazing land. The Soviets forced most of the region's nomads into collective farms, and so what we see is that some of the nomads remain in this Central Asia grassland, and what they're going to do is that they're going to set up their tents basically near this area. And this is what we see in this example, is these yurts are going to be put up, and the yurt is a nomad's light portable tent made up of felt and wooden frames. Now the interior is decorated with woven reeds, mats, wooden saddles, daggers. Hand-woven carpets are famous for their design and colors, but these yurts are actually going to be all over Central Asia, and what we do see is that some of them are actually going to be in the capitals. And imagine going to Washington, D.C. and seeing nomads living in the capitals. It would be very, very difficult. We do see the nomadic lifestyle starting to fade, and some now are going to go and they're going to get kind of, they're going to get out of the nomad style of shepherd and herding and things like that, and they're going to be more tourism. Tourism is going to pay for experienced nomad lifestyles, tradition. Shepherds' families have new source of incomes, which is going to raise basically their economies. This is all for Chapter 16, Section 3. Please make sure that you complete the assessments at this time.